We are in a trust relationship with the government. The government's main purpose or primary purpose was supposed to be to secure our rights and freedoms as men and women, human beings living on this land. Through their laws, their statutes, and their enactments, they placed us in a relationship with them through the person, the Canadian citizen. This relationship that we are involved with the government is based upon trust law or corporate law. Now, as the Canadian citizen, that legal person, we are or we have been placed in the position of a beneficiary, and we are supposed to benefit from the social systems that Canada have erected. These social systems, they do not represent our fundamental rights and freedoms that have been granted to us or that have been recognized on our behalf as human beings. These social systems that we as Canadian citizens are benefactors of or that we benefit from as beneficiaries are underneath. They do not fulfill what our natural resources or our natural wealth could fulfill within our individual lives. The government, in this trust relationship, has the responsibility as grantor to fulfill the obligations and the promises that they have put forth. Now, for example, some of their obligations that they are fulfilling are found in the welfare system. When we compare the welfare system to what a human being is entitled to because of his percentage of the wealth that is upon this land, it falls extremely short. While the wealth that a human being is entitled to because of his part of the resources would allow him to have a house and would allow him to have an abundance of food and would allow him to have proper clothing and would allow him or her to have a continued improvement of that living condition year after year. That is a right or a freedom that is in existence for a human being. The Canadian citizen, as beneficiary to the social system, is only granted a certain amount of money per month. And the amount of money that they are granted does not in any way reflect their needs or fulfill their needs. The government has placed us in the beneficiary position in many, many ways concerning or with this legal person, the Canadian citizen. What I would first like to bring forth or draw your attention to is that originally, as men and women, human beings, that we were the grantors to the government. It was our resources, our natural wealth, that we have turned over to the government, or so they are claiming. Nevertheless, we were the grantors, because a government body is something that has been created through, if you will, fiction, or through corporate law, or through laws and structure. It is not something that is natural. It is not something that is created through nature. Now, we, as men and women, gave over our rights, gave over our authority to the government, and in turn, the government promised that we would benefit from this system. We would be made beneficiaries from this system. The idea seemed like a good one. The problem is, in reality and in action, it's not working out. We are presently in 2013, and the system that is in operation here in Canada is mainly for the profit of a few, the corporations, those in the ruling elite. The poor, the needy, those who are not able to succeed in the corporate world suffer in this country in poverty. This is not what the government was supposed to be about. We, human beings, did not grant you the right to use our resources to enrich the banks, to use our natural wealth to enrich a few. We believe that our resources are there for us individually to support our life, to support our well-being, and also to support each and every one of us, not to support certain individuals or certain bodies. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 1, subsection 2. All people may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Here we are seeing that even though we have granted the right to the government to control the resources and the natural wealth that are upon the land in Canada, as citizens, as persons, we do not have any obligation to dispose of our natural wealth and resources and to accept a social system in return that offers us less than our fundamental rights and freedoms as human beings. The social systems that are present in Canada do not express the fundamental rights and freedoms of a human being, the basic needs to sustain life, the basic needs to enjoy life and not to be stuck in poverty and suffering. We have granted the government the right to seize and to use the natural wealth and resources. In return, as beneficiaries to them now, they have failed in their responsibility towards us. They have failed in fulfilling their obligations towards us. We, as people, as the citizen, we do not have to dispose of our natural wealth into this system anymore. Our part of the resources that have been extracted from Canada and have been placed into this commercial system, we do not have to surrender them. We have a right that we can exercise. We have a right that we can stand upon. And by standing upon that right, we return the power, or if you will, the designation of grantor. We stand back under that designation and say, my resources, my part of the wealth of Canada that you are taking, I no longer allow you to benefit from it. I no longer allow you to seize control of it and operate it on my behalf. I am taking authority. I am taking my right to exercise my security of my person on my behalf for you as grantor to my person, to that Canadian citizen, have failed to secure rights and freedoms of a basic necessity. And above that, you have taken my natural wealth, my part of these resources, and have used them not upon me, but upon another medium and another means. I don't know anybody who would have wealth, an abundance of wealth, that they were willing to turn over to somebody else, that individual wouldn't put a protection mechanism in place in order to secure that wealth that they were turning over. And I contend, and I do say, that when you look into the operations of law that are available domestically here in Canada, we do find that there is a way, that there is an operation available for us as human beings to have access to our natural wealth, to that percentage of resources that should belong to us as individuals, but instead is being used by the government for that citizen. When you look into the Constitution of Canada and into subsequent enactments such as the Financial Administration Act of Canada, you will find that the monetary expression of all the wealth and of the resources in operation for this year are expressed within the Consolidated Revenue Fund. This is where all public money goes. This is where all accounts or all monetary value is reflected for Canada. This Consolidated Revenue Fund is what we have the right to benefit from. The social systems are paid out of this Consolidated Revenue Fund. All systems of government, for example, are paid or stem through this fund. If we, as grantors, back then, gave the government the power to control the resources, to control the natural wealth of this country, would it not have been wise? Would the men of old not have been wise to secure a self-preservation mechanism, to secure a way, an operation of law, that if the human being was being stripped of his rights and freedoms, that he could invoke on his own behalf? I contend again that there is. When you look at the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Canada, there are two operations of law that come forth, that make themselves present, how to access this fund. One is done by a legal person. One is done by the ministers through a requisition. This is the same operation of law. They title it, they designate it requisition. However, there is another operation of law that is available, and this operation of law is designated or titled under a claim. It's a claim for appropriation. It's a claim off of the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Now, I cannot write tomorrow to the government and say, this morning I woke up and I'm operating under my designation of human being, and I desire to have a Porsche. Therefore, I am sending a claim to you and the evidence to support my claim, and I want you to discharge a Porsche for me. While you may feel that you are entitled to such, if you will say, material thing, and that your part of the resources would reflect that amount of wealth, I cannot and have not found a justification within domestic law or international law that would allow me to try and exercise such a claim. However, I do see where there are legal obligations upon Canada concerning my fundamental human rights and freedoms, and that these fundamental rights and freedoms have to be fulfilled. And failure on the part of Canada to fulfill them then permits me or allows me to step in and act on my own behalf as grantor to secure my rights. This operation of law, I contend again, is available to all human beings here in Canada. We know that through the Interpretation Act of Canada, that the expression of common law is the primary focus of how we are to read laws and how we are to apply laws here in Canada. Just that being listed or enumerated teaches us that common law is indeed in existence in Canada. What we need to do is find the expression of common law and the operations of this law and to use them. Within the Financial Administration Act, a man or a woman has the right to access their natural wealth. This right would have been preserved under common law, not under corporate law. We, as we look into the enactment, we would find this operation of law available for us. And in so doing, it would be a safeguard on our behalf for men and women of this country. I end this video by saying this. If you look into the enactments that govern financial transactions, you will always find that the word person has been redefined. That word person now no longer applies only to a corporate status, no longer only applies to that beneficiary, that Canadian citizen. The word person in or when you are dealing with financial matters in Canada always brings forth the office or the subject or the role of natural person. And within that role of natural person, your human rights and fundamental freedoms as that human being can be invoked, and your rights as grantor to your natural wealth can be invoked. This is why there is a redefinition of that word person when we are dealing with enactments that handle financial administration affairs. It is indeed our safeguard. It is our way in. It is our right to step in to this office, to this role, and to use all the operations of law that are available when we stand under this designation. Our natural rights, our fundamental rights and freedoms can be expressed when we step in to this role and operate from this role. Now, there are those individuals in the government body presently in 2013 that are not very happy that we understand these operations of law and that we seek to use these operations of laws to benefit us as individual human beings. They want to not allow this safeguard, this expression of grantorship to be operated from. However, it does not change the fact that this availability is there for us, and that if the government continually refuses to allow us to stand under the designation that is rightfully ours of grantor, they will be facing massive amounts of claims within the justice system. For many human beings, men and women across Canada, are waking up to what is transpiring against them.